Okay, friends, today we're going to do something kind of weird, and I'm going to throw like one from last year back at you guys because I got ready to record on this very topic and then realized, oh my goodness, we already have an episode all about this, and it was a highly downloaded episode, so I know you all enjoyed it. And it's a topic that I think is really, really important right now, and it's all about staying in your lane. And so we're going to dive back in, even though we addressed this last year. I feel like we probably need this one quarterly because getting in our headspace about what other people are thinking or what other people's journey is and all of these other things, it just bogs us down in so many ways. So I hope that you guys re-enjoy this episode from last year about staying in your lane. Hey lady, welcome to episode 3. We are going to talk about my favorite phrase. It's one of my favorite phrases for sure, and that is stay in your lane. I find myself saying it on a regular basis and in a couple of different scenarios, which I'll get into in just a second. But if we could really embrace the mindset issues that go along with this phrase, it can change so much of our life, both in how we view it, the joy that we have in our life, and also in the actions that we take. So allow me to elaborate on a couple of different situations where I find myself saying this constantly, either to friends or clients that I'm coaching. And I'm sure some of this is going to resonate with you on some level. So here's the deal. Usually when I find myself saying this, it's in one of two circumstances. Number one, it's when somebody is being overly concerned with the opinions of others and it's greatly affecting their life. Or when somebody is playing the comparison game, which we all know is a surefire way to misery. So much of our perceived happiness or our perceived joy in our lives comes from just the way that we're viewing things, right? And when we're getting pulled into all these other lanes, when we're focused on things that we shouldn't be focused on, it can really drag that joy and that happiness down the drain. And we start to focus on activities or acquiring things that we think are going to bring us this joy and this happiness, when the truth is, as human beings, we feel joy and happiness when we are content, when we are living out our purpose, and when we have gratitude for what is already in our life. But when we're not staying in our own lane, when we're getting distracted, it has the complete opposite effect. So let's dive a little deeper with this first one, and that's worrying about the opinions of others. So this is a big one. We've all fallen into this trap at one time or another. And here's the deal. Half of what we worry about is made up. Like it's not even real. We get all worked up about what we think somebody else is thinking about us, right? We give things meaning that may not even be real. And not only do we concern ourselves with it, which is a waste of time and emotional energy, that actually transfers into what our life looks like. Because how we feel then determines how we act. And it's our actions over time. That's what our whole life ends up looking like, right? And so how wild that we would make an assumption about what somebody else is thinking, and we would let it affect the way that we think, feel, behave, and ultimately what our life looks like. Like, let that sink in for a minute. So half of the time, what we think somebody is thinking about us, they're probably not even thinking about us. First of all, we're very egocentric as human beings. Like, we think everybody is forming an opinion about us. We think people are thinking about us all the time. They ain't. They're worried about themselves because everybody else is stuck in their own headspace, right? So you don't want to walk into the gym because you don't want to be the overweight person, or you don't want to be the person that doesn't know what they're doing, or whatever this perception is that you have of what other people will be thinking about you. The majority of the people in that gym are not even going to notice you, first of all, because they're just there doing their own thing. The other half of the people that are there are also feeling self-conscious. So the last thing that they're doing is judging you, right? It's so wild to me, just to use this as an example, that we feel like we have to already be in shape to go to the place where we're supposed to go to get in shape. Like, how crazy is that? But I understand it. Like, I've also thought those things too. But like, that's where you're supposed to go to get in shape and make yourself feel better, but you're too afraid of how you look to even go there. And so in that instance, that's preventing you from taking action, right? Now, would some people be judging you? Sure. I'm sure somebody is, but that person's an a-hole and they're not your person. And why should their opinion affect anything about how you do your life, right? And it's not just going to the gym. I just use that as an example, but I'm sure you can think of some times in your life where you've either had some sort of anxiety about what somebody else was thinking about you. And so maybe you still went to this place, you went to this party, you went out with this group of friends, or you still put in for the promotion, even though you were sure that people would think you were crazy for doing it, or whatever the thing is, right? It could be about your health, it could be career, it could be anything. And maybe you still took action because the anxiety it was giving you wasn't that much, but it was still enough that it was making you uncomfortable and it wasn't a good feeling to have. So that's best case scenario when we're worrying about somebody else's opinion, right? Is that it's just not making us feel real great. It's kind of draining us emotionally, but we still push through. But then how many times does that actually stop you from doing something that you want to do or that you know that you should do just because you're afraid of what other people might think? And that can really hold women back from getting back in a body that they're comfortable with, or getting into a relationship that would bring them some happiness, or going for the promotion that is something that is well-deserved and that they've fully earned, but there's just some aspect of it that it's keeping them from there, all because of what they think somebody else might be thinking. And so what I commonly find myself telling people, and this is me being a little bit abrasive, but if somebody is really like spinning out about what somebody else is thinking about them, I'm like, first of all, you don't even know that they think that. You think that they think that because they gave you a look, right? But really that look might have been them trying to work through a conversation that they have to have with somebody else later in the day that's stressing them out, and they just happen to like glance in your direction and they didn't even notice you, and you think that they just gave you a dirty look, and now it's completely changing your whole day, and that person didn't even see you. Okay, so you're spinning out about something that might not even be real, and what somebody thinks about you is, quite frankly, none of your business. It is literally none of your business what somebody else thinks of you. It's not. And when I say that to people, it's basically only my friends that I talk to that abrasively, not typically my clients, but sometimes. And the reaction that I typically get is, what do you mean it's none of my business what they think about me? It's about me. It has everything to do with me. Of course it's my business. No, it's not. Everybody's entitled to their own thoughts and their own opinions, whether it's about you, your dog, your yard. I don't care what it's about. People can think whatever they want. You do not have to accept their opinion as being a fact. You don't have to let it turn into your reality. Like, they don't know you. They don't know your life. Their opinion, quite frankly, shouldn't carry much weight for you if they're just some rando that happens to be in your circle, right? Let them think what they want. Who actually cares? It's none of your business. Don't let it affect you. Move on. Now, I know that that's easier said than done, but if you could really adopt that mindset, if you could really make that switch to where you're not agonizing over what other people's opinions are, what would change for you? Like, really think that through for a second. What would be different? What would you do differently? What activities would you start engaging in? How would your behavior change? Would you stand up for yourself more? Would you put your hat in the ring for different events? Would you just be more relaxed in general and not anxious and nervous when you're out and about? Like, what would be different? It's different for everybody because we get worked up about different things. We have different insecurities and we all have them. But what would change if you would just kind of make some acceptance that, like, not everybody's going to like you. Not everybody's going to think that you're the most beautiful person on the planet. Not everybody's going to think you're the funniest. You're not going to be everybody's cup of tea. Who cares? Move on. Serve the people that you're here to serve on this planet and don't worry about the rest of them, right? And especially if these people aren't even thinking anything bad about you in the first place. Like, a lot of the things we think people are thinking about us are just simply not true. And then what a waste of time and energy and resources that we spend altering our behavior or spinning out about things that might not even be real. And if it is real, and it really is that this person has this opinion about something that you're doing or something about who you are, should that opinion that that person has carry so much weight that it gets to affect your life? Like, you need to be guarded about whose opinions you value, whose advice you take. Like, you have to earn the right to give me advice in my life because this is my life. This is my space. Your opinion and your advice will be solicited when I value it. But if this is just like some random stranger you're worried about what they're going to think, or like, who cares, you're never going to see this person again kind of situation. But even if it's like an acquaintance or something like that, people need to earn the right for their opinion to carry any weight with you. Now, that doesn't mean that you just run around and act like a jerk, obviously. But unsolicited opinions, unsolicited advice, they have no place for you. They're not serving you. It really doesn't matter at the end of the day what anybody thinks. Don't let it bog down your life. You get one life, and you get to you get to design what that life looks like. And you get to make it your own and do the things that you want. And if you worry about what everybody else thinks about every little thing that you're doing, then your life isn't really designed by you. It's designed by the opinions of others, or even worse, the opinions you think others have that they don't even have. So we got to lay that down, right? Now, where's the other place that stay in your lane comes into play? And that is when we're playing the comparison game. So if we put our horse blinders on and we stay in our own lane and we're only focused on what we're doing and not what somebody else is doing or what somebody else's journey looks like, it is so much easier to make the progress that you want to see in your life, because we compare our starting point oftentimes to somebody else who's been on this journey that you're trying to start on for like 5 or 10 years, which is not even a fair comparison. But let's say you are starting off in the same exact spot as somebody else. We all come from a different background, different genetic makeup, different resources at our disposal. We grew up in different neighborhoods. Like, we have a different temperament. Like, there's so much about every human being that is so individual and so different that comparing is just a lost cause, right? It doesn't matter. Like, on the surface, it might be weight loss. We'll just take that for example. On the surface, it might be weight loss. And it might be, well, I want to lose 20 pounds and so does my friend. How come she's losing it so much easier than I am? And it's like, well, even though you may be starting at the same weight and you may both want to lose 20 pounds, you have a different body. You have a different genetic makeup. You've crash dieted different amounts of times throughout your life. Your family's taught you different habits about food. You have different coping mechanisms with food. Like, there's so much to it. Some people put on muscle mass easier than others, while some people kind of hang on to fat tissue easier. So comparing is never helpful, but it only holds us back because it makes us not want to start in the first place, or it slows down our progress or gets us derailed. So if you look at where somebody else is at and you think, man, I have so far to go to get where that person is. Maybe it's weight. Maybe it's their career, whatever it is. Man, they're just so much farther ahead than me. That's where I want to be. But it's so far down the road. it feels impossible. I'm just not going to start. Well, everybody has to be a beginner. You have to be okay being a beginner, no matter what your starting point is. Not starting is obviously not going to get you there. And so it's nice to have people that you look up to, but not if it's costing you the motivation to even get started because of how crummy it's making you feel about yourself and your journey. So that's how it keeps us from starting. How does it totally derail us once we're already going? Well, first of all, anything worth doing is difficult and it's a long road. And along that long road, you're going to have some things that go really well and you're going to have some things that are total crap. And that's just the way that it is. If you're busy comparing, here's what happens. You need to be able to stop and celebrate all your small wins along the way. When we're stuck playing the comparison game, we never allow ourselves that joy of celebrating all of the wins that we're experiencing as we go. Because we're always focused on what somebody else has. Okay, great. I lost 5 pounds, but so-and-so just lost 8. And so, why didn't that work for me? We don't celebrate our own victories because we're always striving for what somebody else has. That makes your journey miserable instead of being this joyful path that it could be. It's completely bleh. You get sick of doing it. And then what happens? You're not going to keep doing it. I've seen people quit things that they're actually succeeding at. Things are going well for them. They are advancing towards whatever the goal is, and they quit. And when you talk to them about why, it's because in their mind, it wasn't successful. And almost always it's because they're comparing it to what they thought it should be like based on somebody else's path. And so obviously that's not something we want to fall into. Here's an even trickier trap. What if instead of you comparing yourself to somebody else, what's actually keeping you stuck is you comparing yourself to an earlier version of you? So this actually does happen, and let me explain. People who, I'll use fitness again. Sorry to keep using that as an example, but it's an easy one for me. People who used to be very athletic, very lean, when in their younger years, when they were single and they didn't have kids and all these other things. Now they fast forward 15 years, 20 years, there's kids, there's way bigger life responsibilities, their career carries more responsibility, they have a spouse, they're getting a divorce, like there's all these other things that are happening. And they've decided, hey, I need to get back in a body that I am comfortable in. Okay, great. But then they think back to how fit they used to be. And getting back to that point seems so overwhelming that they don't even know where to start. Or they think about how aggressive they used to be with their workouts because their life was different. When you don't have kids and you don't have a husband and you have a job like working at the local tanning salon, yeah, you can work out 1 hour in the morning and 30 minutes at night if you want to, but that's not what your life looks like now. And so you're like, well, to have the body that I liked, I had to work so hard and I don't have time to do that. So I'm going to do nothing at all. So sometimes the comparison that we're making isn't even with somebody else in our environment. It's with a previous version of us, and we're letting that keep us stuck. And falling into these thought patterns where we're comparing to our previous self, or we're comparing to something that our neighbor has, or we're worrying about the opinions of others, like any version of not staying in our own darn lane. It was always easy to fall into those patterns. Humans, I think, have always probably done these things, but how much more so now that we have immediate access to view other people's lives or pieces that they choose to show us via social media. And I'm not one to super bash on social media. I really love my Facebook page, my Facebook groups and all of that. But if you don't have a healthy dose of reality that what you're seeing is a snapshot that people are choosing to show you, it's not even their real life, but it's in our face all the time. right? And even television. Like, we see these quote unquote reality shows that aren't reality whatsoever, but these over glamifications. I just made that word up. Do you guys like that? Glamifications? Glamorizations of how these other people live, how the rich live, how these athletes live, how these influencers on Instagram live, like whatever it is. Like, it's just in our face constantly. And so I think now more than ever, it's even easier to get sucked into this space where our own thoughts are just all over the place and they're not where they ought to be. Look, if you can stay in your lane, just stay in your lane, lady. Focus on what you need to focus on. Don't worry about what anybody else is doing. It is a game changer. This is how you get your focus back. Like, who feels like their brain's all over the place? Right? Like, I'm thinking about this, I'm thinking about that. I want to do this, I want to do that. Well, why do you think that we have these I want to do lists? I don't even call them to-do lists anymore because so many people don't even take action. A to-do list is something that you're going to eventually get to, but we have these I want to do lists. and in some ways, those are fun. Like, I have a list that's kind of like that. I guess I'd call it more of a bucket list where it's like, okay, well, when I have time, I want to learn how to do this. I want to go surfing and I want to learn Spanish and some cool things that I want to do. But people put a lot of weight in that stuff now. And sometimes it's really big things that they want to do. I want to start a business. I want to make a career change. I want to do this with my body. And it might not just be get back to a healthy weight. It might be like, I want to compete on stage in a fitness competition. And I want to send my kids to this like amazing private school that's going to cost me millions of dollars. And like, they want all of these very extravagant things, which there's nothing wrong with those in and of themselves. But where did those wants even come from? And you can only bite off one thing at a time, right? You can only make so many big life changes all at one time. So picking what is the most valuable thing to us, not what does my neighborhood think should be the priority, not the keeping up with the Joneses type of thing that you want to work towards. Put your horse blinders on. What is important to you? If you lay down the opinions of others and you totally get rid of those, what is important to you? And then what is your best path to get there? Not what somebody else did, because you're a different person. So what worked for somebody else isn't going to be what's going to work for you. And then once you set out on your journey, who cares what anybody thinks of how you're doing it? If you feel like you look stupid walking in the gym, those people that might actually think that, which are far and few between, by the way, but screw them. Who cares? Like, do I care if I look stupid running down the road when I go on a jog? I probably look like an idiot. I don't actually care if the guy who just drove past me in his pickup truck eating a Filet-O-Fish sandwich from McDonald's and picking his nose and wiping it on the steering wheel. I don't actually care what that guy thinks about what I look like while I'm running down the road. Who is going to drive past me and see me jogging that their opinion should matter oh so much to me? Nobody. I still am making way more progress running like a turtle and gasping for air than the guy who's sitting on his couch, right? So you're still doing more than somebody else if you want to play the comparison game. But the reality is it does not matter. Your starting place is perfect. Wherever you're at right now, that's the beginning of your amazing journey. And by the way, once you make your own journeys, you inspire others to do so too. And guess what? Wherever your starting point is, it's perfect, because the bigger the struggle, the better the story, sister. The more you're going to inspire somebody else. So embrace it. Embrace the suckiness of it. Embrace the weird looks you think that you're getting in the gym when you're not doing the workout correctly. Or if somebody has an opinion about the way that you're eating, or you shouldn't be eating that, that's too much meat, or I can't believe you're eating a banana. Like, somebody's going to have something to say when you start on any sort of journey. If it's weight loss, the most unhealthy person that you know is going to give you an opinion. And you're like, what? Why are you actually qualified to give me advice about this? Oh, you're not. When you go on a journey to get rid of all of your debt or start a business, the most broke human being that you know is going to try to give you advice, or they're going to have an opinion. They're not qualified to advise you or to have an opinion. They're allowed to have an opinion, and their opinion is none of your business, especially if they don't share it with you. If you just think somebody has an opinion about something, that's totally none of your business. Don't worry about what other people think. You do you, because this is your life. This is your one shot at making this look how you want it to look. And so stay in your own lane. Don't worry about anybody else. Put the horse blinders on, get focused, get to work, enjoy the process, whatever journey you're about to embark on, or you may already be in the middle of, or whatever it is, enjoy it. Because all journeys, they're you growing and learning and becoming more confident and upping your skill set. Like, there's so much going on, and you need to stop and embrace that and recognize it for how amazing it is, instead of comparing where you're at on that path to where somebody else is. Don't worry about it. It don't matter. It has nothing to do with you. You do you, let them do them, and just put them horse blinders on and get to work. So I hope that this made sense. I hope some of this is clicking for you. I would love to hear from you if any of this resonates. I know that all of this is easier said than done, but is it worth it to do the hard work and look at this stuff? Because this is the hard work, right? If you need to lose weight, like telling you what to eat, that's the easy stuff, right? But getting real clear on this mind junk that holds us back, this is the hard work. But it's worth doing, right? If you can put in some work to lay down the opinions of others and not worry about them so much, it's not going to happen overnight. It's not like you listen to this podcast and you're like, oh yeah, cool, that made sense. Okay, I no longer care what anybody thinks. No, I get it. It's not like you just wave a magic wand and all of this goes away. But recognizing it is a first and important step. And then you can slowly work towards getting over it. Every time you take an action that you don't want to take because you're afraid of judgment or opinions, and you see that like, oh, I did this thing and nobody made fun of me and nobody mocked me and I didn't die, and okay, good, I can do it again. And then you can start to take bigger and bolder actions because you gain the confidence to do so, and you care a little less and a little less and a little less. It's all going to happen a little at a time, and that's perfect. So, can you see any areas of your life where not staying in your lane has been affecting either your mindset and how you're viewing your life, being content with the life that you currently have and taking in the joys there? Or is it keeping you stuck from making progress in an area that is important to you, that you've been wanting to make a change in? Can you see any areas like that? And if you can, then look to how can you maybe reframe some of these thoughts? How can you change the way that you're thinking about this so that you can take action or live in this moment and appreciate what you do have? Okay, so quick recap. Stay in your own lane. What somebody else's opinion of you is actually none of your business. Comparing yourself to somebody else or worrying about the opinions of others is a surefire way to stay stuck in a life that you don't want to be living. So, where has this been keeping you stuck, and what can you do to reframe it? It is the hard work. This stuff is the hard work, but getting you back living a life that you love, getting you back into a body you love, it is all worth it. You are worth it, sister. So reflect on these questions. Let me know how this sits with you, and I will catch you next week. Thanks for tuning in. It is my mission to give women back the confidence that they need to show up bigger in their lives. Right now, the world more than ever needs women who are on fire and living their purpose. If you want to join me in this mission, there's a few things you can do. 1, you can share this podcast with the women in your circle. 2, you can join me in my Facebook group, Simplified Fat Loss, or you can subscribe to my newsletter at nikkioday.com.